Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to solve three complex queries which are related to self join. So let's start. The first query is find stock prices. So we'll have to find the stock prices that increased by 20%, by more than 20%, okay, within 1 hour. So this is very important. So there are three things that we need to find, two things that we need to find. First, we need to find basically any stock which has increased by more than 20% in an hour, basically within that 1 hour period, okay. So let's start with this. So we have this data here. So this again, it's not a table, but it is the with clause. Using the with clause, I have created this data. If you look at this data, so it has all the stock data, so which contains the stock name, the price of the stock, and the trade time, basically. So it is like every half an hour or something that you will see the price of the stock here. So Apple is 100, 125, 130, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Tesla. So we have these 4 or 5 stocks, and we will see if any of these stocks actually whose price have increased by more than 20% within an hour. Just keep that in mind, okay? So your question is basically I need to find if I take example of Apple, right? If I want to find out if Apple's price has increased by more than 20% in an hour window, correct? So here again I'll have to compare Apple with the this record of Apple with the other record of the Apple, right? So somehow we have to match this or compare these two records, and then we have to find out, okay, if it was within the uh, 1 hour window. First of all, the trade time was within 1 hour window, or and after that, the another thing is if trade time was within 1 hour, then what was the previous price and what was the new price? And if the difference is more than 20%, then we will mark it as okay. This stock has increased by more than 20%. So let's start with this. So again, this will be a self join because I'm going to compare this Apple record with the other Apple record. Okay, so I would need a self join because everything is in this table only, right? Now, now this is like say this is S1 record and this is S2 record. Just take this as an example. Okay, this first record is S1 record and second record is S2 record. Now, what is the common thing between these two? Okay, the common thing is obviously stock. Okay, and so that would be my common condition. The stock is my common condition. I want to compare the stock. Now, next thing is the differentiator. Now, what would be my differentiator? First of all, the differentiator. So I will make sure that okay, stock one is basically having the previous trade time as compared to the basically S2. Okay, how I can do that? It's very simple. Just take this trade time and I'll make S1 trade time is less than S2 trade time. See, as you can see here, the trade time of S1. Okay, this will be always less than the trade time of S2. So this is how I'm creating the range basically between S1 and S2. What is common? Common is stock. So this will become like a single record. So once I do this, I will also get the price stock price also. Let me just show you how it will look now. Okay, S1 dot price, or let me take S1 dot trade time first. Then I will take S1 dot price. Then we have S2 dot trade time, and then we will have S2 dot price. Okay, now if I just run this query, the stock is Tesla. The trade time, this is S1 trade time. Okay, this is 10, and then price is 400, and here you can see it is 1030, and price is 490. Similarly for Amazon. Now we have got the records in a single row basically. Now I can apply that principle. Basically, first of all, the trade time, that is basically T2 minus T1, sorry, S2 minus basically this trade time underscore 1 minus trade time. It should be within 1 hour. Okay, so that's my first filter condition. So let me add that. So how will I do this? Basically, I'll use cast for my date actually. I'll take S2 dot trade time. Why I'm taking S2 dot trade time minus cast S1 dot trade time? Why I'm doing this? Because S2 dot trade time will always be greater than S1 dot trade time because of this condition. in the upper condition. So this is my differentiator. You could say it is kind of a sequential. You could say so. It is kind of doing the sequencing part. So S1 will always be less than S2 in terms of trade time. Okay, and then that is why I can directly use this S2 S2 dot trade time minus S1 dot trade time. Now if I get this, I will do the absolute here first, and then I'll just apply this formula to convert it into minutes. And then I'll say that it should be within 1 hour. Within 1 hour means 60 minutes, less than or equal to 60 minutes. And once I do this, so what was the query? Within 1 hour. So this within 1 hour is completed. Now what is the other filter that I need to check is basically if the stock has increased by more than 20% or not. Okay. So S2 is my latest trade time, correct? If S2 is my latest trade time, so I will do S2 dot price. And what I'm saying is S2 dot price should be equal to, or rather greater than equal to, by more than 20%. I'm saying more than 20%. That means there won't be equal to. So let's remove the equal to. I will do what? S1 dot price plus S1 dot price into more than 20%, right? So I'm just adding 20% to the S1 price. So here S2 price should be greater than the X1 price plus 20% of the X1 price. Say suppose here, if I take example of this one, 400, right? So my 400 and what is the S2 price? 490. So my 490 should be greater than 400 plus the 20% of 400 is what? 80. So 400 plus 80 is 480. So 480. So in this case, this will be a correct record where Tesla has actually increased by more than 20%. So this is how we should actually work out the query. Okay. Now let's run this and see what is the output. Okay, which stocks actually. See, as I told you, Tesla, the example that we saw, right? See, the trade time is starting. So earlier at 10 a.m. it was 400, and at 10:30 it is 490. Okay, so now it has increased by 20% also, and the time window is also less than. It is within hour, 1 hour basically, less than 60 minutes. Now Google is 9, and this is 950 again. This 500 and 620. Similarly for Apple, it is like 100 and 125, 9 and 930. It is within 1 hour. So as you can see, we are able to correctly find out the stock prices, basically the stocks whose prices have increased by more than 20% within the time frame of 1 hour. Okay. Now let's look at the second query, which is find same customer. Okay, so here it is already saying same customer making purchases in different cities within 30 minutes. So what it is trying to say is it is trying to find the fraud transaction. See, basically if customer is in Mumbai, and then how can that customer make a transaction in say a city like Bangalore or Chennai or Pune, right? Within 30 minutes. It is not possible, right? It is not possible that customer is present in two cities within 30 minutes. So that is how this query is all about finding the fraud transaction. If there is such transaction, then there will be an alert, basically a fraud alert. So now let's understand how we can actually work out or create the query for this. So again, the common condition is obviously it is going to be customer. Okay, making purchases. So this is your transaction in different cities. So this is also one of your condition. Different cities should be different. The transactions, the various different transactions of the same customer, the city should be different, and the time frame should be within 30 minutes. So that's these are the important pointers that we will keep in mind. As far as data is concerned, I'll just show you the data, how it looks. I have created again this data. So here you can see for John, we have this 4 or 5 records for John, for Alice, for Bob, and David. Okay, so these are the various records that we have, and as you can see, the time is also given. So John is in Mumbai and Pune. Okay, and the time difference is 20 minutes. So this is directly one of the fraud transaction. John is in Mumbai and again Delhi. So it is 11:10. It is out of this window 30 minutes. John is again in Mumbai and Pune. So this is another fraud transaction. Okay, so all these should be flagged here, and that is what we will try to see if our query is able to return that. So how are we going to do this? Again, see, as you can see, everything is in the same table. So the transaction time, and I need to compare these two records, all the records of the customer within that table itself. So I will create what? Self join. Now inside the self join, my first condition. The common condition is obviously what? Customer. So customer should match in both the tables. Okay. So this is table 1 and this is table 2. What is the joining condition? The customer. Now, what is the other condition that we had seen? The transaction is saying that city should be different. Okay. The city should be different. This is another important point. And what was the another important filter that it said was within 30 minutes. Okay. So within 30 minutes is also another important filter. After sequencing part only, I will do this transaction time thing. Okay. So let's do the sequencing part. So see, either there is one possibility that I can go with the assumption that my transaction ID. So okay, for the after transactions, say like the transaction which happened at 10, obviously the transaction ID would be lesser for that for the new transaction IDs. Okay, which happened at 10:20. So in that case, I can directly use T1 dot transaction ID less than T2 dot transaction ID, or I can use T1 dot transaction time is less than T2 dot transaction time. So this is very important for bifurcation and as well as the sequencing part. Here I am using the transaction ID, assuming that the transaction ID is going to be basically in the sequential order. It's kind of a primary key, and the later transaction will have the higher number. Okay. Now let's do the comparison. Okay, the time comparison, the time window. Let's find out the time window. Let's do that. So absolute is fine. We'll do it later on. First, we'll find out the time. T2 dot transaction underscore time as date minus I will cast T1 dot transaction underscore time as date. I'll just do this. No, this is absolute. And again, I will just convert this into the time difference into minutes. And what do I want is it should be within 30 minutes. So it is less than or equals to 30 minutes. So this is important point. Okay. So now I am almost ready. So what all conditions have we taken care? Same customer. Okay. It is for the same customer. City is different. This is the differentiator you could say, or the sequencer you could say. So the transaction ID is going to be unique, correct, for each and every transaction. And the assumption is that the later transactions will have the higher number. So considering that our transaction time of T2 will always be greater than the transaction time of T1. So that's the assumption. And based on that, we are trying to find the window as well. Now, let's see if we get the, first I will add the customer name here. So here it is customer. Then I will add city, and I will also add, this is second city. Okay. After second city, what do I want is T1 dot transaction time. This is the transaction time of the first transaction, and this is second transaction time. So now we have all the details here. Now let's see what is the output. Here, as you can see, here we can clearly see Alice, right? City is Chennai, second city is Bangalore. So different cities. And what is the transaction time? The second transaction happened at 9:25, the first at 9. So it is within 30 minutes. So this is the for transaction. I just need to add the transaction ID as well. T2 dot transaction ID as transaction ID. Yes, it is 2001 and 2002. So this will be flagged as the fraud transaction. Again, Mumbai and Pune, right? 1001 and 1004. Here you can clearly see it is 10, and this is 1025, and there is another transaction of John. This is of the same customer, right? So this is how we were able to flag this. So this is all about the second query. Now let's start with the third query. Find overlapping trips for the same driver. Now what we want to find out is for the same driver. Okay, say driver A. Okay, if there are any overlapping trips. When we say overlapping means, say this is trip 1, it is from 8 to 9 a.m. Okay, let's take a.m. only. And then T2, the trip 2 basically for the driver A. This is for the driver A only. And then it is like this 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. So this is overlapping, right? Here trip 1 is still running, and then we already have trip 2 for the driver A. So this is overlapping condition. And then there could be like other conditions also. Like we can have trip 1 from 9 to, or you could say 10 to 11. Let's take 10 to 11. And say trip 2 is 8 to 9. So this is not overlapping, okay? Just keep this in mind. So this is not overlapping. Here the trip is not overlapping 8 to 9 and then 10 to 11. So this is not overlapping. Let's start. Now we have this data here. Okay. So in this, we have here, okay, John. And as you can see, the trip ID for 101 for John is 8 to 9. And then again, John has 8:30 to 9:30. So this is clear overlapping that is going to happen. Then there is another trip 9:30 to 10:30, which I feel is not going to get over. This is not overlapping because neither of these actually overlap with the trip. Then we have John 10 to 11. 10 to 11 is going to overlap with this one. So there is overlapping also here. So in this way, we need to find out which are the overlapping trips. Okay. So that's the goal here. Again, see the common part is driver here. So driver is common, right? And again, all the data is within this table itself. So we will do the self join. And what is the self join condition for us is driver. So your driver will be a self join condition, which is the common condition. Now, next part is differentiator. Okay. So trip ID. Trip ID is actually differentiating between these two transactions. Okay. So T1 dot trip ID is less than T2 dot trip ID. So now differentiator is also done. Now what is the overlapping condition? We need to understand the overlapping condition. Okay. So let's understand the overlapping. When the trips will not overlap. Okay. When trips will not overlap. Let's first understand in this way. Okay. Then we'll understand the negative way. So when trips will not overlap, say trip 1 completes when trip 2 starts. So this is one condition. And we are saying trip 2 completes when trip 1 starts. If T1 dot end time means trip 1 completes. It should be less than trip 2 dot start time. Correct? T1 dot end time is less than start time because when trip 2 starts and trip 1 should have completed. That means, say like end time was 9 a.m. Your trip 2 start time is 9:30 a.m. Correct? So then this is a true condition. Okay. So here it will not overlap. Now what is the other condition that we need to check? It would be reverse. What we want is trip 2 completes. So it will be end time less than T1 dot start time. Should be less than equal to, because equal to means okay, the driver can actually, it is not an overlapping condition. Driver can continue. It can serve both the all that same both the trips basically. So this is the condition. If the trip 1 end time is less than or equal to start time and trip 2 end time is less than trip 1 start time. Now this is not the overlapping. So this, if this is true, if these two conditions are true, that means it will not overlap. But what we need to find out is if the trips are overlapping or not. So we need to be very sure. If both these conditions are true, only then it will overlap. Okay. So we will convert this into not actually. We'll do not of this condition. This is not an overlapping condition, right? But I want to find out the overlapping condition. So if I do the not, right? So what would be my not? End time, T1 dot end time, it should be greater than T2 dot start time. This is the first condition, right? So this will overlap. As you can see, what is happening here? My T1 dot end time, so it is 9:30 and T2 dot start time is 9 a.m. So this will become true. So this is overlapping. Correct? That is this point. Now the second one is T2 dot end time is less than equal to T1 dot start time. So it is similar. T2 dot end time, okay, it is greater than T1 dot start time. Simple. So now just understand here. I am checking if T1, when T1 ends, does, that is trip 1 ends, does T2 starts. And here I'm checking if trip 2 ends, does T1 starts or trip 1 starts. So I'm checking both the conditions, right? And if both the conditions are true, only then we say that okay, this is overlapping. Okay, let's run this and we'll see the output. Trip ID, we will add the driver's name here. Driver, trip ID. I will put the start time, T1 dot in time, T2 dot start time, T2 dot in time. Let me add T2 dot trip ID also. Okay. Now here we can see which trips are actually overlapping. So here we have these trips. So this is 8 to 9 for Mike. And if you look here, 8 to 9, and then we have 8:45 to 9:15. So this is overlapping, correct? 8 to 9 is the trip 1, and 8:45 to 9:15 is trip 2. Then we have 9:30 to 10:30. This is trip 1. And then we have 10 to 11 as our trip 2. Again, this is overlapping. And then we have 8 to 9, and then we have 8:30 to 9:30. Again, this is also overlapping. So this was all about the finding overlapping trips for the same driver. Hopefully, this is a bit complex actually. You will have to understand or go through this once again to understand it. If you have